Guys, welcome back to the Off-Grid Garage here in super sunny and very hot Australia. We have like 80 amps outside at the moment. You know, I'm already on 66% and it is 11 o'clock in the morning. I've got all the time to fully charge this battery slowly today, very slowly, because there will be sunshine until 5:30 or so. Well guys, what can I say? You have seen it in the intro. We are going to test lithium we are going to test sodium batteries, Na+ or salt batteries. I tell you, there are a shit ton of questions about sodium batteries out there, and I'm going to explore them all. We will measure the heck out of these sodium batteries, doing all the discharge test, find out how to charge, how not to charge them. We will do capacity tests in both directions, have a comprehensive and detailed look at the charge and discharge curve of these batteries. How do they absorb? Do they need float mode? What equipment can be used with sodium batteries? The same inverter, the same BMS? Do we still need active balancers? So we will do the whole comparison between sodium batteries and lithium iron phosphate batteries. We know lithium iron phosphate batteries very well. We have done a ton of testing here on the channel, discovered every angle of these batteries. But now slowly these sodium batteries are sneaking into the market and we want to see how far they actually are. Can we replace lithium iron phosphate with sodium batteries already? So these are just the questions I came up while talking to the camera now. I'm sure you've got a million other questions as well. So without further ado, let's get started. So there you go, sodium batteries. No lithium anymore, huh? So I bought these 4 18650 cells. Well, this one is not one of them. This is actually a lithium ion 18650, but if I mix them up, you can't tell. So of course, exactly the same dimensions and look as a normal 18650 cell. And these ones have a capacity of 1.5 ampere hours and a nominal voltage of 3.1 volts. And they come with the usual blue heat shrink, negative on one side and the usual positive terminal on the other side. So nothing special. You cannot tell from the outside that these are sodium batteries. And I bought 4 of them because I wanted to build a 12-volt battery, but is this actually possible with 4 of them? Or do we need only 3? Or do we need 5? We don't know yet. Well, to start with, let's have a look at the data sheet they provided with these cells. It's very interesting. So here's the document they provided for these cells. Specification for sodium ion rechargeable cell. I don't know exactly what kind of brand that is. I couldn't find the name of the manufacturer of these cells here. And there was also a bit of confusion from the beginning because these cells were offered as 1.3 ampere hour batteries. And it says 1300 here in the specification as well. But here on the heat shrink it says 1500. So I guess we will find out. So we want to have a look at the definitions before we start going deeper into the specifications here. So we've got a capacity of 1.3 or 1.5 ampere hours at 25 degrees. We've got an end voltage of 1.5 volts. We can charge these batteries to a 3.95 volts with a constant current of 0.5 C. And then we have the usual drop off of 0.05 C at 3.95. Discharging with a constant current of 0.5 C down to 1.5 volts. So 1.5 volts is our low limit and 3.95 is our high limit. So this is very different to our well-known lithium iron phosphate batteries. So here are the dimensions. Nominal voltage 3.1 volts, charge voltage up to 3.95 volts, discharge cutoff is 1.5, internal resistance is smaller than 20 milliohms. They claim an energy density of 118 watt hours per kilogram. And here's another main difference to lithium iron phosphate batteries. We can charge these batteries down to negative 10 degrees Celsius. Yeah, only with 0.2 C, but we can still charge these batteries. This would be a no-go for lithium. And from 0 to 45 degrees, we can charge these cells with up to 1 C. If the battery gets hotter than 45 degrees, we cannot charge it anymore. Lithium iron phosphate goes to 55 degrees. We can discharge these batteries down to negative 30 degrees Celsius. 0.2 C again. From 0 to 45 degrees, 3 C. And I'm sure we will test this in one of the upcoming videos. And even above 45 degrees up to 60 degrees, we can still pull 0.5 C from this battery cell. So as we have seen already, the maximum constant charge current is 1 C up to 3.95 volts, and then at 0.05 C we consider the battery to be fully charged. We can discharge the cell with up to 3 C down to 1.5 volts. Very interesting. Okay, charge and discharge curves of sodium cells, we are not looking at that. We will make our own charge and discharge curves in this video here. So here we have the usage conditions again. So we can charge this battery from -10 to +45 degrees. And we can discharge from -30 to +60 degrees Celsius. So that's a bit of a difference to lithium iron phosphate. So here we have the test conditions explained. At 25 degrees we are constant current, constant voltage charging this battery to 3.95 volts with 0.5 C and with a cutoff of 0.05 C as seen before. The discharge, constant current down to 1.5 volts. We're discharging with 1 C, 2 C and 3 C and getting different results with the capacity. So even at 3 C they're claiming we are still getting 98% of the capacity. But I'm not 100% sure how they mean this here. Is this like a discharge capacity at 1 C divided by discharge capacity at 0.5 C? And this gives you more than 99% of the capacity? I don't know. Yeah, I think so. So the cycle life is at 25 degrees. Again, the same conditions to charge the battery and discharging with 0.5 C down to 1.5. And then we have a discharge capacity at 3000 cycles divided by a nominal capacity gives us more than 80%. I guess this is how it works. And here again the capacity calculation for high and low temperature. This is always in relation to 25 degrees. So discharging the battery at very low temperatures gives you 85% of the capacity. Discharging the battery at very high temperatures gives you 98% of the capacity. Then charging the battery at 25 degrees to 3.95 volts with 0.05 C cutoff and storing the battery for 1 month in these conditions. And then do a discharge test. It gives you 95% of the capacity. So it looks like they are losing around 5% of their capacity if you store them for 1 month. And then they have done all the safety tests with them. Vibration test, no explosion, no fire. Thermal abuse, no explosion, no fire. So they heated up the battery to 130 degrees Celsius. Short current was also no explosion, no fire. They overcharged the battery with 1 C for 1 hour. No explosion, no fire. And they discharged the battery with 1 C for 1.5 hours. There was also no explosion and no fire. They also did an impact test and there was no explosion and no fire. And then there come the usual warnings. So don't use these batteries in water, don't put them in fire. So I will link this document on my website as well as the test results we are doing today. So if you want to have a closer look at all the specifications for these cells here. So I'm pretty confident we can finish all the tests today, charging and discharging, with taking the curves and analyzing everything, because I'm going to discharge and charge this battery with 0.5 C. Usually we use only 0.2 of a C, but then charging and discharging would take 5 hours. So here for a first look and taking the curves, 0.5 C it will be. So for this test I'm using one of the standard 18650 holders here. It's a 4 battery holder, but we are using only 1 slot here for 1 battery. And then I have already set up the EBC-A20 tester, which we will use. Connect it to our computer to take the curve, and we will connect the positive directly to this terminal and the negative directly to this one over here. So we should have a voltage reading already, 3.56. I just got a bit scary at the moment because I thought this battery is so full, but no, it's a sodium battery, it's not lithium iron phosphate, so 3.5 volts, totally fine. Alright, and we are starting the EB tester software. I tell you what, it feels so good. We want to actually connect this COM7. Yes, it is. Okay, so we've got now the voltage here of our battery cell on the monitor, and we want to constant voltage charging with yeah, well, is this a 1.5? It doesn't matter. 0.75 amps to 3.95 volts, and the cutoff current, the good old calculator, 1500 times 0.05. Cutoff current is 75 milliamps. 0.075. Is that correct? So just checking again, charging to 3.95 volts with 0.75 amps, and then we have a cutoff at 75 milliamps. Okay, let's fully charge this battery, and then we do the full discharge with 0.5 C. I'm not sure how long this will take here. Should be ready in about 20 minutes or so. All right, see you then. I guess I will say this a lot of times in this video. Oh, okay. I think the cutoff current is 0.1 amps. That's the minimum I can go. Okay, we go with that. We're charging. We've got current and we've got voltage, which is rising. All right, see you in a couple of minutes. Oh, we just passed the magical 3.65 volt mark. And we keep charging. Oh God. While this battery is charging here, I have also a brand new 12 volt 50 ampere hour sodium ion battery here. So this is like a drop-in 12 volt battery. And Herr Müller from Müller Energy in Sydney here was so kind to donate this battery to me. He bought actually a couple of them to test them out. They are prototypes. And he said he's not very happy with them. So he donated one to the off-grid garage here for me to test. And the good thing with this battery is we can also open the lid here and have a look inside what kind of BMS they have used, what kind of cells, how the battery is being built. So we will do all this in a later video as well, having a look at this 12 volt 50 ampere hour battery. Just having a quick look at these specifications here. So we've got a charge voltage here of 9.2 to 15.6 volts. That is insane. Standard charging 10 amps, standard discharging 10 amps, maximum is 50 for both. So this will be very interesting to test out. The voltages are so different. Wow. Caution. Only use 15.6 volt charger to avoid the risk of fire or explosion. Can sodium batteries actually catch fire or explode? I thought they are so safe. Alright, we are charging now for 20 minutes or so. We have reached the 3.95 volts. The current is tapering off. And we're already down to 0.2 amps. They are so tiny currents, unbelievable. So I guess the cell is now absorbing. And before we start our discharge test, I also want to take the temperature of this cell. 33.5 degrees. This is at full charge now. I'm not expecting the battery gets too warm during discharging, but who knows? So here in the cycle test tab, I have already programmed the sequence. So we're going to fully charge the battery again to 3.95 volts. And this is only to get a common start point for our discharge. I will do this with all the other cells as well. And once we have reached that, we do the discharge. And this measures then the capacity and also takes the discharge curve. All right, charging has now stopped. Voltage is dropping just a little bit. Okay, we start this test. So it's charging again to 3.95 volts, 0.1 amp cutoff. All right, discharge has now commenced. Yep, discharging with 0.5 C. We've got the current up here, constant current, and this is our voltage curve. All right, I would say see you in 2 hours. 2 hours, and then we have a look at this discharge curve of a sodium battery. I'm very excited. I'm literally very excited. This will be so different. Okay, we are now discharging for 15 minutes with 0.75 amps. Voltage has gone down from 3.95 to 3.5. And we can see a pretty linear discharge curve so far. It is very lightly curved, but very, very different to lithium iron phosphate. Okay, I just wanted to share this during the test, because I think this is very interesting. Well, you find this interesting as well, otherwise you wouldn't watch this. Alright, see you in a bit. Alright, and we are back in the garage after 1 hour and 46 minutes and 20 seconds. We've got the result. We discharged the cell from 3.95 volts down to 1.5 with 750 milliamp of discharge current. And we got a capacity of 1.329 ampere hours. So I'm not sure if these are 1.5 ampere hour batteries or 1.3 ampere hour batteries. Still undecided here. It could be the large discharge current as well. I have a quick look at the temperature. This is 35 degrees, so 2 degrees more than before we started. That's fine. That could be the ambient temperature here as well. So I will repeat this test with 0.2 C discharge and see if there's any gain in capacity. But I think these are 1.3 ampere hour batteries and not 1.5 as it says on the heat shrink. So here I can present you the discharge curve of the sodium battery. And it looks very, very different to lithium iron phosphate. Very different. So this is where we started, 3.95 volts, discharging. And the curve is going down very linear from here, I would say, to this point here. This is a very linear discharge, almost flat. It's a bit bended here at the top, roughly until here, but then it goes very, very linear down until here at 2.7 volts. Obviously, there's something happening with the sodium battery. We have discharged 0.851 ampere hours so far. So that is 64% of the capacity already used. And then the curve suddenly plateaus out a bit. Yeah, probably roughly until here, 2.62 volts. And this is where we have discharged around 1 ampere hour. So around 75% of the capacity. So from here it goes downhill. But we still have 25% of the capacity there. So the voltage is going down further and further. We are at 2 volts here. Here. So here's exactly 2 volts and we have discharged 1.251 ampere hours, which is just over 94% of the measured capacity. Then the voltage goes further down. There's another bit of a kink here in the curve at around 1.7 volts, but then we have already discharged 1.31 ampere hours. So we are close to 99% discharged energy now. So I would say if you discharge them down to 2 volts and leave 5% in the battery, that would be fine. This is probably like 3 volts with lithium iron phosphate batteries. Then you've got like 5, 6 or 7% still in the battery. And usually we stop discharging at 3 volts. And I would say the same here. 2 volts should be your lowest discharge of these batteries. So there is a bit of a jump in voltage at the beginning when you fully charge this battery to a 3.95 volts. But then again, do you charge to 3.95 volts all the time? You know, this is like 3.65 with our lithium iron phosphate. We usually don't go that far. Do you leave a buffer of 5% at the top and 5 at the bottom? And honestly, I'm not even sure if this is necessary with sodium batteries. So we are really missing out on these important and significant points on this discharge curve here, like with lithium iron phosphate, where we have this steep incline of voltage at the end and a steep incline at the beginning. And then it plateaus out in the middle. But here it's a very linear discharge curve, bit of plateauing then here, and then it goes further down. And we don't know if sodium batteries are getting stressed as well as the lithium batteries. So you keep actually a buffer at the top and at the bottom. Well, we just don't know. I guess we will do some more testing in the future with this battery here and see how far we actually should charge. Maybe it's enough if we charge to a 3.7 volts and then absorb here. And it gives us almost full capacity anyway. Watch this space. Well, here at the bottom I would say 2 volts is a good number. 95% of the capacity should be fine to stop discharging. Technically, we can actually discharge this battery down to 0.0 volts, right? This is one of the marketing arguments for sodium batteries. You can discharge them to 0 volts and they don't take any harm. But from what I can see here, I mean, we are down to 1.5 volts and the curve goes really steep already. I don't think there's any capacity left between 1.5 and 0 volts, so this is not the reason to discharge them to 0 volts. The only reason could be because of transport. This is what you can read everywhere. You discharge the batteries to 0 volts to transport them safely. Well, I have never heard of an accident somewhere where they transported lithium iron phosphate batteries with about 30 to 40% state of charge, and they got into an accident, and because the cells were still charged to 30 or 40%, it got really bad. I never heard of any incident worldwide so far. So I'm not sure if this discharging to 0 volt is not really just a marketing trick. Hang on, where was this? Here, it says it here in the specification sheet as well. Single cells are shipped with nominal capacity of 20 to 30%, or according to customer requirements. So even here they're saying the batteries will be shipped with 20 or 30% state of charge, not with 0% state of charge or 0 volts. Okay, I think this is very, very interesting to see this discharge curve here. And we now do the reverse. We are now charging this battery up again to 3.95 volts, take the full charge curve, talk about it, analyze it, and see how far we should charge this battery. Okay, I have now programmed the next task sequence here. So we are going to discharge this battery down to 1.5 volts again to get our 0 point, and then from there on we take the curve and charge it all the way up to 3.95 volts with 0.75 amps, and then when we hit 0.1 amps cutoff, we call it. That's it. That's our capacity test for the charging, and we will have a look at the curve then. Of course, I have saved the discharge curve and the data as well. This will be all available on my website. I'll talk about this again at the end of the video. Okay, there we go. We hit the task sequence, discharging again. Okay, and here we are charging. Voltage is rising steep. Obviously the charge current is constant and voltage is rising very fast. We are already at over 2 volts here after a few seconds. 2.1 volts, rising very quickly. Alright, I guess this is another 1 hour and 40 minutes, so we will see us again at around 4 o'clock. Hey, that's almost be o'clock, right? Okay, see you then. I'm back. It is 4:30, 1 hour and 44 minutes. We have just reached the 3.95 volts. You can see the voltage is now being kept constant while the charge current is going down very, very quickly. We are already down to 370 milliamps, and at 100 milliamps, that's fully charged then. So far we have charged 1306 milliampere hours into this battery. So pretty much the same as we have discharged. I really believe these are 1.3 ampere hour cells, not 1.5. Unless the quality is so bad and they have just less capacity as stated on the heat shrink. We can take another temperature measurement. 35 degrees, stable at this temperature. So the tester has just turned off. Voltage is now declining a bit. We have charged 1.317 ampere hours into this little cell, starting from 1.5 and finishing at 3.95, cut off 0.1 amps. A fairly linear charge curve. So here's 1.5 volts and the next measurement is already 2 volts. So voltage rises very quickly at the beginning. I mean, we have charged 1 milliampere hour into this battery and the voltage has already jumped from 1.5 to 2 volts. Incredible. And then we see a fairly linear increase, a bit of a bow, and then we've got this plateau here again, even in the charge curve. So roughly starting from 2.9 volts and finishing probably here somewhere at close to 3 volts. The incline is a bit flatter. And then we see a very, very linear increase in voltage and capacity right until we hit the 3.95 volts. There's a bit of a bend from maybe from here all the way up, but this is so small. So looking at the discharge curve and now the charge curve here, that means you can actually measure the voltage of this sodium battery and can determine the state of charge of it just by measuring the voltage. So if you measure 3.044 volts, this is roughly 50% of state of charge. So, and now let's determine. So we've got 1317 at 1251. So does it make sense to charge these batteries to 95% only? Is this good for their health? Well, we don't know. We've got no information about this, right? And the same with the discharge. Does it make sense to stop discharging at 2 volts or should we go all the way down to 1.5? Will the sodium battery last longer if we use it between 10 and 90% state of charge? We don't know. So far there's no recommendation, there's no data, there's nothing out there. Nothing. So obviously they achieve the 3000 cycles by discharging the battery from 3.95 volts down to 1.5 volts. And here under cell usage condition, there's only the temperature stated, but there's no recommendation about state of charge. While lithium iron phosphate manufacturers, they actually state use the battery between 10 and 90%. But here I cannot read anything. Here we've got our charge and discharge curve again. So it looks very similar to what we achieved. Just looking through all the specifications here again, and there's nothing in here. So that is pretty interesting. Before we have a quick discussion about this, I will save all this information, the curve and the data for it, as a CSV file on my website. The link is down under the video. You can download the EB Tester software for free. You can import these CSV files I have here created and have the exact curve for voltage and current on your computer. You can then use the right mouse click to get all the data. See, it tells you the voltage, the current, the ampere hours and the watt hours for this specific moment. And you can drag your mouse along the curve. All the information is there, free of charge. It's free. Actually, let me go into this BMS, the ZKE-BMS here. This is one of the new PB inverter BMSs. And we put in the password. And let's see if I would be able to program this BMS here for sodium batteries. So the cell overvoltage protection at 3.95 volts. Said okay, it has accepted it. We can set the requested charge voltage to 3.9 volts, for example. Yeah, it would do it. We would also reset the BMS to 100% at 3.9. It needs to be lower. Come on, ZKE-899. 1 millivolt lower. Yep. And the cell overvoltage protection recovery, I want to have at 3.8 volts. Okay. This is actually possible to program. What about the 1.45 volts? Okay, accepted. The undervoltage protection is at 1.5 volts. Accepted. We are at 0 at 1.55 volts. And the recovery would be at 1.75 volts, for example. Okay, so obviously we can use the ZKE-BMS with sodium batteries. All the parameters can be programmed for this type of chemistry. That's cool. So what about your inverter? Let's have a look at the Victron Multiplus 2. So we have to make a decision here. What kind of battery are we going to build? A 48 volt battery, obviously, a 48 volt system. How many of these sodium batteries do we need to put in series to get 55, 57 volts? So 57 volts divided by 3.95, 14. So you're building a 14S system. Can we build a 15S system? 3.95 volts is 59.28. So this will be in the specifications for charging, right? So if we go in here somewhere, it should tell us, yeah, the maximum the Multiplus 2 can charge is 64 volts. And if you put 15 of these sodium batteries in series, we've got 59.25 volts. So we could actually go one cell more and do a 16S, 3.95, which would be 63.2 volts. This would still be in the specifications for the Multiplus 2. So we could charge a 16S sodium battery to 63.2 volts with a Multiplus 2. Okay, now we have to look at the other side. If we have a 16S battery, 16 times 1.5, because this is how far we can discharge. That would be, holy shit, that would be 24 volts. So let's have a look in the inverter. For the charger to still be operational is 37.2 volts. So here, 37.2 divided by 16 is 2.3 volts. This is the maximum, or this is the minimum I can discharge the batteries to. Otherwise my inverter would shut down due to a low voltage disconnect. So here's our discharge curve again. And we have calculated 2.325 volts. 2.325. 2.325. There. Ah, shit, come on. There. So this would be 1151 ampere hours. Milliampere hours out of 1329, which is which is 86% state of charge. So we could use the Multiplus 2 to fully charge this battery to 3.95 volts and then discharge it down to 2.3 something volts, which gives us 86.6% of the capacity of a sodium battery. But this is the absolute maximum the inverter can do. It goes almost to the maximum of 64 volts and it goes down to the absolute bare minimum of 37.2 volts. So we cannot use more capacity of these sodium batteries with this inverter. How about other inverters? So I just did the calculation here. If we have a 12 volt system, considering of a 4S sodium battery, this could be a voltage between 6 volts at the very low end to 15.8 volts. An 8A system for a 24 volt battery, lowest voltage is 12 volts for a 24 volt system. Really? Maximum voltage here 31.6 volts. And a 48 volt, as we have seen, could be 24 volt to 63.2 volts. So the voltage delta is huge with these sodium cells. And here, let me turn on this screen recorder again. And here I have the instructions for the FCHAO, for the PIDA inverter. The voltage range goes to 10.5 to 15 volts. The 24 volt version goes from 20 to 30 volt. And we have 12 to 31, so we can only use a portion of the battery. And the 48 volt version of the PIDA inverter goes from 40 volt to 60 volts. Let's go quickly back into our discharge curve. And for 2.5 volts, because this is only 6.5 here. Exactly. Yeah, this is 1076 amp. So you would be able to use only 80% of your sodium battery. Actually no, I'm incorrect here, because the manual says, it says the maximum voltage is 60 volts, not 63. So we have to go into the charge curve. 3.75 volts is somewhere over here. Yeah, that is 11.1. 12% less. So charging the battery to 60 volts only would leave us with 12% at the top, which we cannot use with this inverter. And what was the other number? I can't remember. I put this all on the screen here. So you will be very limited what you actually can use from this battery with the PIDA inverter, for example. And you can have a look in the manual of your inverter you are using and put these information down in the video description. What is the minimum and maximum input voltage for your inverter? And then we can have a look in the curve and can figure out how much capacity would your inverter be able to use from a sodium battery, a 16S sodium battery. And to be honest, this is only one aspect we are looking at now, the voltage range from minimum to maximum and the existing equipment on the market. And I'm sure they cannot just output a new software update for your inverter and then it will be sodium ready, because the hardware in your inverter needs to run stable as well at 1.5 volt per cell. For a 12 volt system, the inverter still needs to run at 6 volts or a bit over 6 volts. So as you can see, this is already where the problem with the sodium batteries start. We have literally no hardware to support this sort of chemistry. The ZKE-BMS seems to be fine. We can also have a look at other BMSs, see if we can program the step-loss BMS, for example, for such a battery, or the PACE BMS. But the inverter side seems to be far more difficult to match the sodium chemistry. And because this cell number 1 is now fully charged here, I want to take the opportunity to do another discharge test here with 0.2C and see if I get more capacity out of this battery. Here guys, I guess so far this video from this afternoon, fully charging, fully discharging this sodium battery. Very, very interesting and very different charge and discharge curves, right? And with all the hype about sodium batteries, I'm not sure if these batteries will always have a breakthrough, like the lithium iron phosphate batteries. And we see these batteries here in cars, in vehicles, in tools, or in e-bike batteries and all kind of stuff. I mean, this is one of the first generations of sodium batteries here, and they may put other goop inside at some stage to have a flatter voltage curve then. But imagine they have to make new hardware, like new inverters and new BMSs and new balancers, just because everyone wants sodium batteries now. I think the lithium iron phosphate battery chemistry is very, very good at the moment. Top notch, works a treat, and there are no issues with it. There are no safety issues, there are no hardware issues, there are no battery issues. Yeah, alright guys, I think we are doing more testing with the sodium batteries. If you want to see specific tests, please leave them down in the comment section of this video here as well. I'll have a look and pick some of them. Unfortunately, the EBC-A20 tester goes only down to 1 volts, so we cannot really discharge this battery to 0 volts here and measure the overall capacity. and see if there's any gain from 1.5 to 0 volts. That would be a test I would be interested in. And we don't have any information how long we can keep this battery on 0 volts. Is that good or bad for the battery? Why do we stop at 1.5 volts then? What is the recommended depth of discharge for this battery? 90%? 80%? Less? 95? Who knows? Well, and you have seen on the 12 volt battery, it also states we can charge this battery to 15.6 volts, while 15.8 volt would be the maximum. So I assume this is a 4S battery inside as well. And when we discharge it, it goes down to 6 volts for a 12 volt battery. That is insane. So we will do a lot more testing with these batteries here in the next couple of videos. Analyze the sodium batteries in terms of charging and discharging. And because these sodium cells are supposedly so safe now, what happens if we overcharge them? If we charge them to 5 volts or something, what happens? Are they exploding? Are they start burning? Are they just gassing? Who knows? I guess we have to try that somehow. No, please don't leave any of these comments under the video here. I'm not able to do any short circuit tests here or overcharging tests to 5 or 6 volts or something until the battery goes up in flames or explodes or whatever. I don't have the equipment for here, and it's far too dangerous to do at home. And I certainly don't want to be in the news with these new batteries. But we will see. We will do some more testing and we'll see how much capacity we actually get out of these batteries. So stay tuned for that. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all your amazing support here on the channel. And until the next video, guys, you stay charged, stay safe, and thanks again for watching. See you then. Bye-bye. Before I forget, I will of course link these batteries down in the video description as well. I think I paid about 27 Australian dollars for 4 of them. Well, I'll link them down below. They also have bigger prismatic cells, 230, whatever it says here on the screen. They have already offered me, but I don't really see the point to buy bigger capacity cells because we are not going to use them in a production environment as of yet. Maybe in a couple of years, but who knows? Maybe they are not coming to market at all. Maybe they are more suitable for very cold climates where you have to charge your battery in negative temperatures. But we have to wait and see. It is all speculation right now. So let me know what you think about these batteries. I'm keen to read your comments. I'm sure there will be lots. Alright guys, thanks again. See you in the next video.